when I send them the script, then we meet afterwards, and it's much a casting. They're casting me as I'm casting. Are we going to make the same movie? What are you going to be interested in? Rafe, one of the questions Rafe asked me, are you interested in the, sort of in the interior journey of the people, or in that detective story? So I think, we're casting each other. We're looking at, are we going to make the same film? Because we don't want to find that out on the set.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In honor of the 77th Annual DGA Awards, we're bringing back our annual series of episodes devoted to our popular Meet the Nominees theatrical feature film Symposium. The event is a roundtable discussion with the directors nominated for the Guild's Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Theatrical Feature Film. This year's nominees included Jacques Audiard, the director of Emilia, Pérez, Sean Baker, the director of Anora, Edward Berger, the director of Conclave, Brady Corbet, the director of The Brutalist, and James Mangold, the director of A Complete Unknown. These talented directors gathered on stage at the Guild's Los Angeles Theater on February 8th to discuss the craft of directing and the making of their films with moderator Jeremy Kagan. So please enjoy part 1 of our Meet the Nominees theatrical feature film special.
As we get settled in here, I saw a quote this morning from the playwright Bertolt Brecht, who said that art is not about being a mirror reflecting reality. Art is being a hammer that shapes it. All of you have made films that have shaped our realities and shaped cinema. And we are honored to be able to be in discussion with you. So thank you all, and let me introduce each one of you. This is Sean Baker, director of Anora. James Mangold, director of A Complete Unknown. Edward Berger, director of Conclave. Brady Corbet, director of The Brutalist. And Jacques Audiard, director of Says So, Emilia, Pérez. In a way, we should just look at the films and not talk at all, because the films are really what speak for your talent. But we're lucky enough to have you here with directorial team here to hopefully learn how you do what you do. So my first question is, what do you do the night before? What's your homework for the next day of shooting? And what's the first thing you do when you arrive on a set? Sean, what's your homework? What's the first thing you do when you arrive on set?
Oh, let's see. Hello, everybody. And hello.
It's great to see you,
It's
Sean.
great to be here. The night before, it's just a bunch of panic. And with this film in particular, I'm also the writer on this film, so I was actually doing some rewriting usually the night before, especially with the longer set pieces, when I realized a couple of days into these longer set pieces that adjustments had to be made. So we would be spending our evenings prepping for the next day in terms of literally adjusting the script and dialogue.
Would you also be dealing with, and how would you be dealing with how you might do the next day, and also dealing with the characters that you're going to be creating the next day? Would you deal with that also in that night?
There was a little bit of that, but a lot of, I think Drew Daniels, who shot the film, my wonderful cinematographer, we didn't previs, but we had a plan, a visual plan. We knew how we were covering certain scenes. So that really didn't change. I think with this film, it was really about the script. It was about adjusting the script along the way.
Are you able to sleep?
When I'm shooting, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I can live on about 4.5 hours of sleep for those, for that time.
And when you arrive on the set, what's the first thing you do?
Again, it's about, if I did make changes the night before, it's about presenting it to everybody and trying to articulate those changes as well as possible. Because, that can be frightening. And I remember the first time I did it, it was the second day of that big, the home invasion set piece where I realized adjustments had to be made. And I walk in there and put my laptop down on the dining room table. I'm talking about the mansion that we shot in. I put the lap book down, and I'm like, okay, I've rearranged the dialogue, guys, huddle around. And I looked up and I just saw fear. I saw a lot of fear. And especially on on Karin's face, Karin Karagulian, who plays Toros, who just spent weeks memorizing, and he went white. I said, no, guys, we have time. I asked production, we have 2 more days on this. So so really it's just about, getting the cast and crew always in a comfortable place, because when they're comfortable, then you relieve as much stress as possible, and you can all just have fun and be in the moment. That's how I see it.
Got it. James, the night before, what's your preparation?
Well, it's similar to what Sean described. I mean, it changes with every movie to the degree that actors have different cooking times and different ways of functionings, and your script can be in different places. I too was rewriting on Complete Unknown as we went along, because I was learning. You're learning from what's getting put on its feet, and but usually, on this movie, I was cutting in the evening too. I was on an Evercast with my editors in LA, and which the time shift kind of worked perfectly for most. I find that really helpful. Like you kind of can't wait to see the material. You want to, a movie isn't just a series of shots, it's how they go together. And what's happening when they do, and what isn't happening when they do. And so that would happen. But the one thing I thought that was really wonderful on this movie in particular was Timothy would call, or I'd call him almost every night, and we would just on the phone read through the next day's work. And it became a kind of tradition. One I had done in other ways with other actors. I'd get on and kind of just take the moment with key actors to go over the scene, and in that way solve those kind of first tier questions that were going to greet you in the morning. Those kind of he's having the experience of playing Dylan in the movie. He's learning every day too. Have we talked about this scene since we started? And kind of putting it in front of us, and I play everyone. I play the women. I play whoever it else is. We just read it over the phone, and we just stop and go, "Did that bump you?" or or "What do you think?" And then, in a way, that was solved for the morning of. Like, I didn't have to do the trailer visit and like that. I would arrive on set and be ready for my toughest moment. The part I have to fasten my seatbelts for most making movies is the first hour on set, in which you're tired. 4.5 hours is probably the norm too, and you're hit with so much. Everything, the day is determined in the first hour of the day. What is the blocking? What is the first rehearsal? What is the you're encountering that you either heard about last night, or what are you dealing with? And the solutions to most of those problems will happen in the first 50 minutes on set. And so it's kind of once you get past that, the fun begins. Got it.
Edward, for you, what's the homework the night before, or if it's the day before and you're shooting night, but the night before, and what's the first things you do when you arrive on a set?
Well, I do the same thing as James. I see the cut of the things we've done before, just because it gives me security, and it kind of, when I remember the first time I went to, the first day at film school, the first exercise we did, I went to the same film school as Sean did. So, about the same time, right?
Which film school is this?
By the way.
At NYU.
Oh, that makes one more. Keep going.
Great. We all went to the same one. So, I remember doing the first exercise on the Steenbeck and having a shot reverse shot, which I didn't know about, I didn't know about shot reverse shot. And I realized, my God, they're looking at each other. And it was such a miracle for me. I couldn't believe it. I'd seen it in movies, but I didn't analyze it. So seeing that miracle come to life on the Steenbeck was unbelievable to me, and I still have that. You shoot everything so separately. I mean, yes, there's the wide shot where everyone is together, possibly, but then you wonder every time, like, is this going to go together? And then I see the cut and go like, oh wow, they're talking to each other. It's a dialogue. So I have that miracle, and that gives me sort of a boost for the next day. And then I read the scene on this movie. I didn't write this one, so I had a wonderful collaborator, Peter Strawn, who I would call at night, and I reread the scene for the next day, and then I call if I have a question or if I want to change something, or I'd call him. We'd go over it, and that's probably. And I shot list everything or storyboard everything, just because, again, just having the comfort the next day and being to know what you want to do and how you want to possibly start the day.
And what's the first thing when you get on the set?
Well, it's probably it differs from day to day, but usually it's gathering everyone around and just summarizing what we want to achieve during the day. Just the crew. The actors might be in costume, some of the actors might be there, and just saying, okay, today we want to do this, get everyone honed in, and there's this one shot that's super complicated. We're going to do it around lunchtime or whatever, and that's what we're going to work towards. And then just get everyone in that mode. And then I, talked to Steph. I stole Jacques Audiard's cameraman because I adored his work on his movies Prophète and Rust and Bones, Stéphane Fontaine. So we go through the day and start lighting and setting up. But then I don't, I wait for Rafe and everyone to come, the actors to come, and then rehearse and then determine what we shoot first.
Got it. Brady, for you, what's your homework in the evening or day for the next day? What do you do?
I'm usually trying to close financing.
And how does that go?
Well, that really depends. I'm not very dogmatic. I don't have a ritual. Generally, I'm shooting in places where there's a lab, just because, part of what determines where we shoot, because we're shooting on celluloid, is if there's a lab, so that we don't have to ship the neg, because
Right.
we usually can't afford to. It just would be a bit too expensive to be sending it back and forth. So it's very old-fashioned. At the end of every day, we all of my heads of department come with me, and we watch yesterday's footage, and we sort of talk about what's working, what's not working. I mean, specifically with VistaVision, what's funny about the format is that it's very unforgiving. So if it makes something that's beautiful look much, much more beautiful, but it makes something which is ugly extremely ugly, because it's so high fidelity that if something is flatly lit, it actually just kind of looks like a sitcom.
Got it.
And so there was a bit of a learning curve for us, because we did some very rudimentary testing, but you don't really know until after a couple of days exactly how it's behaving in terms of how highlights are rolling off and on a set, a costume, etc. So you're making small adjustments, of course.
When you arrive on the set, what's the first thing you usually do? Where do you go? What do you do?
I don't have a ritual. I sort of depending on, I'm trying to respond to a space. I don't storyboard, and part of the reason I don't storyboard is that in the past, when I have storyboarded, I find that everyone is trying to adhere a bit too closely to these cartoons, and so the thing is that I realize that for example, when you're scouting and you find a frame, let's say that you're shooting on a river or something, but then the tide has changed, and when you get there, it looks like a canal or something. It's not, there's no magnificence, so you have to be very, very nimble. I think you have a very rough idea of what you're doing, and everyone has a different approach. But for me, what I struggled with, for me personally, with storyboarding, was that I would also get attached to them. Like I would arrive and sort of we would immediately set up this shot that made sense 3 months earlier, but the season has changed and everything's changed. So yeah, I don't know. I'm quite nimble, and I work differently with different performers. Some performers really want a lot of attention. Some want to be left alone. I try to read the room to the best of my ability. Who needs what, and it's an interesting thing because you're existing for a lot of other people. I mean, especially if you're empathetic and you care about, people's personal lives and stuff. It's to be connected to 250 people for 18 months. It can be very moving, very beautiful, but also extremely draining.
Got it.
So,
Got it. Jacques, what's the homework that you do before the next day's shooting? And what's the first thing that you do when you arrive on a set?
Ok. Le soir, généralement, moi, je ne regarde pas les rushs. C'est mon co-scénariste Thomas Bilguin qui les regarde à ma place et qui me fait des notes. Donc, quand je rentre le soir chez moi, je lis les notes de Tom sur les rushs. Et puis là, normalement, je fais 2-3 tentatives de suicide.
By the way, I want to introduce Nicholas Elliott, who's doing all this hard work for us.
Je traduis déjà ça.
Oui, vas-y.
In the evening, I generally don't watch dailies. It's my co-screenwriter Thomas Bilguin who watches the dailies for me and takes notes, and then he reads me the notes on the dailies every night. And generally at that point, I do 2 or 3 suicide attempts.
Et je prépare après, je relis les scènes du lendemain. Et très souvent, je réécris. Soit je fais des aménagements dans les scènes, soit j'écris d'autres scènes. Alors déjà, ça me prend un petit peu de temps.
Then I reread the next day's scenes, and very often at that point, I rewrite. Either I amend existing scenes, or I completely create new scenes. So already that takes a fair amount of time.
Après, donc, je dors.
Then I sleep.
Et quand j'arrive sur le tournage, généralement, comme l'assistant m'attend, avec toujours une petite angoisse dans le regard.
Generally, when I arrive on the set, the assistant is waiting for me, nearly always with a little bit of anxiety in his or her eyes.
Là, je lui donne les textes que j'ai fait imprimer.
Then I give him the texts that I had printed.
Il s'absente un petit peu et il va pleurer dans les toilettes.
He goes away for a little while to cry in the bathroom.
Quand il revient, on met en place les scènes à faire. Je prends les textes, les nouveaux dialogues. Je vais voir les actrices quand elles arrivent. Et là, j'ai l'impression qu'elles veulent me tuer.
When the assistant director comes back, we put in place the scenes that we're going to do. Then I take the printouts of the new dialogue and I bring them to the actresses as they arrive. And generally at that point, I have the feeling that they want to kill me.
Et ça va être le début d'une chouette journée.
And that's going to be the beginning of a great day.
As all of you know, and some of you have even spoken to this, casting becomes one of the most essential parts of what we do. What I'm interested in you talking to us about is your audition process, not the casting of the major leads, because we know the complication of it. But if you were casting, and I may ask some specifics about some of the characters in your movie, but you're meeting an actor for the first time. What I'm interested in, what do you say, what do you do, how do you proceed? So, Jacques, let's start with you.
Alors oui, c'est marrant parce que comment je me suis fait cette réflexion, peut-être que c'était une conversation. Le casting, pour moi, c'est le moment où le plus grand risque est pris dans le choix. C'est que si on se trompe, alors on va pouvoir éventuellement changer d'acteur ou d'actrice en cours de route, mais c'est déjà trop tard. Et je pense que donc moi, quand je vais au casting, c'est déjà avec ce sens du jeu, de la responsabilité. D'abord, je vais les rencontrer, les gens, on va discuter, tout ça, et très très vite, je vais leur donner des scènes à passer, comme on dit au théâtre. Et les scènes à passer, ce ne seront pas celles forcément du scénario qui est écrit. Ce sera des scènes que j'écrirai juste pour les répétitions. Et donc, on va travailler là-dessus. Et généralement, je demande à la production... Voilà, quand je commence à choisir un comédien, je ne veux pas que ça se fasse comme ça. On va travailler un moment ensemble, et puis au terme de ce moment, je saurai si c'est lui ou si c'est elle.
We can't wait. I'm sorry. We don't want to put any pressure on you.
It's funny, you know, I've asked myself about this or had conversations regarding this. You know, casting for me is the moment where you take the biggest risk in terms of the choices that you're going to make. Of course, if you make a mistake, you could swap out an actor or an actress along the way, but it would already be too late. So when I'm going to audition someone, it's the moment when I have the greatest feeling of stakes, of responsibility. And so initially, I'm going to meet this person, we'll have a chat, and then quite quickly, I'm going to give them some scenes to read. And these are not scenes from the screenplay, but screens that I've written simply to rehearse. And together, we're going to work on those scenes. You know, when I'm starting to choose an actor or an actress, I don't like it to be just like that right away. I ask my producers to give me the time to work with them for a while, and it's at the end of that process that I'm going to know.
And in the conversation that you have with the actor, and in what you ask them to read and the adjustments that you might do, talk about that.
D'abord, ils partent... Comment ils lisent le scénario, ils lisent le scénario, je leur dis que c'est pour tel ou tel personnage, voilà, donc on va discuter du personnage, mais comment ça je crois que c'est un processus qu'on suit tous, et c'est plutôt oui, qu'est-ce que la personne va me dire du personnage, ça c'est une chose, faire une analyse littéraire d'un personnage, c'est quelque chose, mais faire une analyse en jeu du personnage, en acting, ça c'est autre chose. Et que c'est pour ça que assez vite, je vais passer dans un processus de travail avec un comédien, puis après 2 comédiens ensemble, de savoir comment ça dialogue. Est-ce que le comédien ou la comédienne, excusez-moi, je dis le comédien, c'est générique, là je vais me prendre les pieds dans le tapis ici. Et la chose intéressante, c'est de savoir si la personne est capable de jouer avec quelqu'un. Qu'est-ce qu'elle va transmettre à cette personne? Comment elle va exister? Et j'ai remarqué une chose. C'est trop long pour toi?
T'inquiète.
You know, I have a feeling maybe what we should do is let Nicholas translate, and then we'll have Brady answer while you're translating.
No, then I'll forget.
Okay, fair enough. I got it.
Et comment, oui, c'est ça. Et comment le comédien va jouer avec l'autre? Comment il est en face de l'autre? Est-ce qu'il l'écoute vraiment? Est-ce que j'ai le sentiment qu'il l'écoute vraiment? Et comment, ça c'est une autre chose, c'est une autre étape, c'est quelle conscience du temps va avoir l'acteur qui joue, de sa temporalité. Je crois que les très grands, j'ai croisé des très bons acteurs, ils se rendent absolument maîtres du temps de la scène. Et ça, c'est prodigieux.
Okay. We're all going to translate now.
J'aurai toujours cette tête-là quand il écrit.
So first, I have the actor or the actress read the screenplay, and I tell them, you know, I'm looking at you for this character, and we talk about the character. I think all of us, you know, follow this same process. But then the question I ask myself is, what is this person going to say about the character? To have a literary analysis of the character is one thing, but what analysis is this actor or actress going to give me of the actor, of the character through the acting? That's another thing, the analysis through the acting. And then quite quickly, we get into a work process together. You know, first I'm looking at the actor alone, then, and by the way, I'm saying actor just so I don't get mixed up, actor or actress. We get into a work process. Quickly, I bring 2 actors together, and I'm looking at that point at how the actor I'm casting is working with the other person. What are they passing on to the other person? Are they really listening to the other person? Am I getting the sense that they're really listening? Then, the next stage is to check out what awareness of time this actor or actress has, of the temporality. You know, I've had the luck of meeting some great performers in my life, and those people can master the time of a scene, and that's really something that I'm looking for.
Interesting. Nicholas, you got it? Brady, if he's checking, we'll go back. But same question for you, Brady. In terms of when you're having an audition, particularly with actors you don't know, you're meeting them for the first time, what's your process?
Well, as some of you might know, I was an actor for many years. I stopped about 13 years ago, and I found the audition process to be quite brutal because people would sometimes send you 13 pages of material or something for a couple of, with maybe 48 hours notice, sometimes even less. So I try to be very respectful of everyone's time, which is to say that I don't do any auditions at all unless I have to. For all the main roles, I only make offers, including usually all the principal roles, because usually there's a body of work that someone has, even if they're 25 or 24 years old. For example, Emilia, this young woman who played Alessandro Nivola's wife in the film, I had seen her in a couple of things, and I knew she was very competent, and I loved her for the role, so I asked her to do it, even though she had not been in very much. And then, the exception to that rule is when I'm either casting children, or if I'm casting something locally, like when I'm shooting abroad, and so I usually try to give someone just about a page and a half of material, because I want them to be comfortable. And for me, I don't want it to be too challenging, because I don't want them coming in the room shaking. So I usually know, like within 15 seconds, if someone is correct. And then if it's really necessary, then I maybe will say, you know what, that was so nice. Let's just read something cold together that's a little more material, just the two of us. And then just the two of us will read it back and forth, and that's it. But that's even quite rare. An audition process can be it's a funny thing. There are people that are very good at auditioning, and yet actually like not quite as good, like in situ. Yeah. So I really I try to take as much air out of the tire as I can, so that it's not no one feels like they have something to prove, because it's not about can you do it, it's about are you right for it, and that's something which is you usually know pretty quickly.
I'm interested in a couple of characters like Joshua and Leslie. Were they just people that you knew and seen, or
yeah? I mean, a lot of Jonathan, who played Leslie, I had seen in all sorts of films. He was in Jurassic Park and all sorts of stuff. So we had a Zoom, and I liked him very much, and so that was all.
So every now and then you will still have a conversation, not an audition, but that's a conversation.
I always have conversations. So I have a conversation. Definitely. We always speak first.
Okay, I want to make sure.
We always speak.
So you will meet them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Sorry, that wasn't clear. No, of course, because that's the most important part is the conversation.
And what kind of conversation might you be having? I mean, interesting enough, but talking about that first part, but she has no lines for so much of the time. What might have been the conversation with her to cast her?
You mean with Rafi, who plays Jafia?
Yeah.
Well, Rafi had starred in my previous film, and I work with a lot of the same people again and again. It's a bit like a commune or something, or a theater troupe. I kind of like I try to work with the same people as much as I can. Yeah, I mean, we have usually a conversation about the material, and something that's very important to me is that I'm working with someone who's oriented. Like, I've struggled sometimes when someone just fundamentally doesn't understand, what the themes of the film, or what that happens sometimes. So it is important to me that even if I'm working with someone very young, like 7 or 8 years old, because my first film starred a 7-year-old, and And he was just such a special boy, and he was so smart. And now we had a beer together recently because now he's 20 years old, and you know, he's exactly the same guy at 20 as he was at 7.
So you might use him again.
Oh, I mean, I guarantee it. Yeah.
In terms of, let's do one more. If you were in a Zoom conversation with someone you didn't know, what might be again, are you going to talk about themes? Are you going to talk about, what will you talk about?
Oh, you know, what you talk about with anyone you've just met, where they're from and their background, and it's just a conversation. I wish I had, you know, rituals or dogmas or philosophy about these things, but actually I have a philosophy about the themes that the films are investigating, but that's kind of it, and the rest is just on a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Edward, for you, casting, I know that you believe that it is essential for the whole experience. Auditioning someone you don't know, what's that process?
Well, I didn't know Ray Fiennes and I didn't know Stanley Tucci, so I asked them to come in and audition. No, of course.
They might have.
So when they auditioned for me, in this movie I had a lot of principals who are seasoned actors. You know, obviously you can't audition them, and I feel this. I mean, they wouldn't come, but I think you know, when I send them the script, you know, then we meet afterwards, and it's as much a casting me as it is, you know, they're casting me as I'm casting. Are we going to make the same movie? What are you going to be interested in? Rafe, one of the questions Rafe asked me, are you interested in the, you know, sort of in the interior journey of the people, or in that detective story? And of course I was interested in the interior journey.
You said no.
Yeah, no, I just want to make an action film. Yeah. And so I think, you know, we're casting each other. We're looking at, are we going to make the same film? Because we don't want to find that out on the set. You know, when you meet Edward Norton, you know, like he's gonna like look at you and go like, "What's your plan?" Right? So we just want to get that out of the way so that we start. And we're still gonna be nervous on the first day if we're gonna want to make this. And you find each other in the first week or 2 weeks to find, like, you know, they have to make themselves so vulnerable. They have to basically undress in front of 200 people. They need to trust that person that's gonna shoot them. So, and you slowly give that trust during the shooting. But what I find really important is, in this case, you know, sometimes you have sort of, in this case, I had these principals and then a lot of bit parts from Italy or from other countries. And I need to cast all of them. Even if they just say hello.
When you, for example, all the cardinals that we see, and some of them do not speak, but you have separate shots of various ones where they're smoking or talking. You're casting them as well. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I cast, well, they come in, and, you know, the dialogue usually is just like, Bellini has 50 votes, you know, that's their dialogue. So they don't have to learn much, you know. And I just need basically, kind of like Brady says, they walk in the room and you know, oh, that person's going to be good. And then you just want to hear, and you have maybe 3-4 different ones coming in for that one role. And then you just want to hear it once, and it's the tone that's more important. I actually don't need to look at the face. I just kind of listen. And the way they say it, for example, there's a wonderful actor who sits behind, and he's fairly well known in Italy, and all he does is sit behind the front desk and read the amount of votes that people, and he just did it so beautifully, the tone of it, that you think, like, I just want to listen to this guy, you know, like he just fits in. And if you don't do that, someone will come in and you will notice in the whole movie that that tone is not quite right. And you end up cutting it out most of the time. If I don't cast, or if, you know, there's an emergency, the actor gets sick, you have to replace him the next day or something, somehow you end up cutting those scenes.
Got it.
Very often.
In those faces of those cardinals who do not speak, you're also casting them. How's that process for you?
Well, that's you know, you have, you know, now we're in the DGA, so you have a wonderful team of people, ADs, and I went to Italy, and you know, we all love Paolo Sorrentino's movies. So I look at his credits, and he has great extras, supporting artists. I mean, they're brilliant. So I look at the credits and who does the casting for, who's the second AD for Paolo Sorrentino? And I call her up. And she did what she does, she wants, and luckily I had a lot of 80-year-old people who are out of jobs, so they sit around drinking coffees and she can just walk around Rome and go like, do you want to be in a movie? They go, yeah. And then, she cast them.
And some of them, out of curiosity, are non-actors. Some of them just the person.
All of them.
All of them.
I mean, all these guys are just from the street, and that's sort of, and they just look great, yeah. And they have interesting faces, and then she casts them and brings them in, and we talk about it, and then, we should just shoot them.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what you say.
But she did all the work.
Got it.
She did all the work finding these people, and I got that from Paolo.
Fabulous, fabulous. James, for you, a casting process, someone that you didn't know who's coming in, what's the process?
Well, first of all, and this I concur with a lot of what everyone else is saying, audition, the whole concept of audition makes me uncomfortable. In the sense that when I first started going to auditions, the casting director would read a scene and I'd see what Brady described. It occurred to me that the whole thing is cruel beyond measure, the way it's conducted. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of feeling out of each other that's going to have to occur. But there couldn't be the only way it's more brutal is if you ever directed a commercial and you see the absolute horrendous way actors are treated in commercial auditions. But in in a movie, I find there's several things I have to immediately undo as a quote audition process starts. One is to make sure, and I still fail at this because I'm somehow not scary enough about it, is that do not tell the agents what you're looking for. So they tell their clients, the actors get this pencil version of what the role is because the actor will get the sides and then they will call their agent and go, well, what are they looking for? And then right there, the agent destroys their client's career because they go, a hooker with a heart of gold or blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly what comes in, you're like, what in who told you this? And it's like, oh, the person I give 10% of my income to. And that is devastating. And also the extra stuff they throw in, make sure you look hot or make sure you blah, blah, or dress like a gentleman or like all this horse shit that the actor gets poisoned with before they even enter your space.
Then how do you handle it?
Well, first of all, you do what you can to actually make everyone aware that if they come in dressed like it's Halloween, I'm sending them home. And you also, but there's another thing, which is it's evolved. So what I've, in the last 10 years, 12 years, what I do more often is it started early on because I get frustrated because the casting director would be, and I felt like, just give it to me. Like you're giving them nothing. And when you play the scene with an actor, you may be good or bad on your end, but you actually are directing them by how you're hitting the ball to them, and that changes a lot. And you're also saying to the actor, I'm willing to put myself here with you, good or bad, so don't be as freaked out because I may look like a schlemiel doing this with you. And but the other thing is trying to say, kind of what Brady was saying, I do want to work a lot of material, but I don't want you to learn any of it. I will hit you with, I'll put aside an hour, 2 hours, and we are going to cold read. And then if we want to keep going with the scene, we'll keep going with the scene. If we want to jump to the next scene, we'll jump to the next scene. Most actors, after 3 times reading the scene, are practically going to be off book anyway, unless it's like unless you're having them do, a Willy Loman monologue. And the reality is that what happens, it's not about what they put on tape. It's about what's happening between you, and how. And then this gets to what Jacques said, which I thought was really profound and true, which is you don't want the kind of collegiate literary analysis of your screenplay or character. It's not that I find it offensive, but that it's going to be in their way the whole time because that's not what we're doing.
Was there a part on this that was a challenge for you to cast?
I thought Joan Baez was going to be a big challenge, and then Monica just appeared, and it was like so over the second she did. And
Was there, for example, casting Woody Guthrie?
Well, that was hard. That was hard because it's hard to convince someone to work for no money for 3 days with no lines, and or a week or whatever it was, and who at the same time can somehow conjure, who could do it. I mean, there's plenty of people who would do it, but can they do it? And do they embody, that was a real challenge. I mean, and it takes an actor who understands that it's not about how much you talk.
Had you worked with Scoop before?
No, just admired him and just had a feeling. Did a Zoom with him. I mean, 9/10 of it is that initial. I think there's several big misconceptions in my book about acting. One is that we compliment actors all the time on their chameleon-esque ability to change. And first of all, I think it's not true. Like Meryl Streep is kind of the same person in every movie and brilliant. So is Jimmy Stewart. So is Cary Grant. So is John Wayne. So is Dustin Hoffman. I have no problem with that. But let's stop pretending just because they have an accent in one and not in another that they're bringing a huge part of who they are to everything they do. And so when we're casting, even if it's a not named person, you're looking for that thing that they bring that will fuse with the thing you brought if you wrote the script, and and how that's going to fuse.
Jesse, casting, is Big Bill Mansfield, is he a real
He's
player?
a real blues player. He had never acted before.
And how'd you find him?
I kept rejecting tapes and things they'd send me, and I'd be like, first of all, it makes you sad because they go, give me a real blues player, and then any blues player, there's all sorts of people who call themselves blues players that are some kind of fusion weird that I never heard of that is that's not a blues player. And finally they found, he's Muddy Waters' son. And they found him in the Atlanta area, and he just put himself on a tape, and it was so clear from the moment. I mean, we spoke and Zoomed, but it was so clear from the moment. Just the fearlessness, because he's not an actor, he's also not filled with all the anxiety of what this means when he's doing it. He just landed there and said the lines and played guitar and was great.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Big Bill did it for you.
Yeah.
Now, actually, Sean, you take a credit as casting. So this is obviously something that is passionate for you. And the variety of characters in your piece, from the opening scene of the girls who are doing the dancing and the men who are doing the dancing, and scenes where Toros is going to these various places to try to find Vanya, to really skilled actors. What's your process here?
Well, we really mix it up. It starts very early. There's sometimes in the case of Anora, 3 actors in mind before I wrote the screenplay: Mikey Madison, Yora Borisov, and Karin Karagulian. My wife and producer, Samantha Kwan, a fellow producer, she is also a major part of this, helping me with a lot of the supporting and background. I'm just realizing now up on stage that we haven't actually done the formal audition process since Florida Project, when we had to see all those children. We had children coming in, and yes, it's the worst thing in the world. It makes everybody uncomfortable, and it's very hard to judge. But it is necessary in some situations. But with our films, no, it's no longer necessary. I think everybody is cast through either an offer or a self-tape, where we reach out and ask for a self-tape or something like that. And again, I'm kind of mixing it up with my films, where it's like seasoned professionals and first-timers. In this case, in Anora, my entire main cast and most of my supporting are seasoned professionals. And so they were basically offers.
When you say an offers, for example, the actor who plays Gornick, one of the Gopnik's guys,
yes.
one of the hugs, the one who gets his face smashed in and puts the tortellini on his
Vache
head.
Tavmasian.
So how would the process of casting be?
Okay, so that was a little bit of a difficult one. The person we originally thought was going to play that character was no longer available. And it was down to the wire. It was probably 3 weeks from production, maybe. And Karin, I said, Karin, I need Karin Karagulian, who is basically my consultant for all things Armenian, right? I'm saying, help me out. I need, let's go for some comedians. And he said, well, Vache, he's like basically Armenia's #1 comedian who happens to be living here in Glendale.
Wow.
So I was like, hell yeah. And we did a self-tape. It was amazing.
Do you remember the scene he did for you? Or do you recall?
No, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. So, but he did this self-tape and you saw this.
Yeah, self-tape, he made us laugh. He was actually, because we were only 3 weeks out, he just thought we were like, what sort of production is this? Why am I being cast last minute here? They must have problems. But no, we got on it, and then we did a Zoom, and we connected, and off to the races. We just offered him, the one thing I am also aware of now, and it's just happened in the last 2 films, is that because now I've been meeting actors who have seen my films, they kind of are bringing something to the table that they're expecting that I want. And that's usually the truth. They know I'm looking for certain abrasive behavior, outrageous behavior or abrasive attitudes. And so it was interesting that the character of Diamond, who is her rival at the club, played by Lindsay Normington, we were at a screening, an after party somewhere in East LA, and she actually approached me and said she liked my films, and I just we had a great conversation, and I thought she was striking, her physicality was striking, and we went and had coffee, and it was a wonderful coffee in which I realized how incredibly smart she is and plugged in to both film, but also the sex worker community, being that she's a stripper as well as an actor, and offered her the role right there and then. And so and she knew what she knew the territory. She knew the territory, and you can see that in her.
In all of these scenes that I was just talking about, like that opening sequence, and like as Toros is looking for him, are these all real people that
it's a combo. It's a combo.
And sort of how are you? Let's just
well, there's
the
SAG background to a certain degree. Like most of the male clients at the club, SAG background. Most of the dancers are dancers from all clubs in New York. We had a liaison we had to get us dancers. So we would meet with our dancers over Zoom, each and every one of them. And that's an important thing for me to do now for both cast and crew.
What would you talk about with these dancers?
Oh, just giving them just the nature of how we shoot, and of course giving them the rundown of what the film is about, all that stuff, and what we were looking for. And then also there's something that I've been having to do as of late. Just talk about, let's bring positivity to the set. We want no toxicity on set. It's very important for me to meet everybody. We do a Zoom with not just the entire cast, but the entire crew, to everybody, including every PA, every single person. We take the time to Zoom and just be like, let's all have fun together. No toxicity. That's really important.
And by the way, every now and then when you're having one of these conversations, have you gotten the vibe that?
No, it's actually, I think that Zoom, we just started it with Anora, where we've met with everybody. And it was really, I think they were refreshed. They were like, oh, the director's actually having a conversation with me about how we can make this film together. And it was, I saw the look on their faces. They were actually, it felt like it was something new, for every position.
Did that also apply, for example, again, when Toros is searching through all those different restaurants and restaurants? These are Russians, these are Armenians. Well, how did that
That's very different. That's running gun guerrilla craziness. That's where we are literally doing, and we knew that there were certain sections in the film, what we call, that section is called the crawl, where they are literally looking for Yvonne throughout Brighton Beach. And that was like, I was kind of going old school, the way I used to do it, like where I'm almost doing candid camera style, where we're out on the sidewalk, we set up the camera, we just wire our actors, they go in and they interact with locals. And then—
How big's the crew at this moment?
The crew on the sidewalk is approximately maybe 10 people.
And so those 10 people are walking into this restaurant.
No, only the actors are walking in.
Where's the camera?
The camera's out on the sidewalk. And then as soon as we get it, we walk in there and politely say, hello, sir or ma'am, if you look over there, there's a camera, and we're shooting an independent film here, and you were just part of the scene, and these are actors, and could you sign this release for us? And it works almost 99% of the time. The only time it didn't work for me and really bit me in the ass was on Tangerine, shooting one of the bus scenes here in LA, because people are more savvy about
Yes, they are. They're not going to sign on the bus.
So I wouldn't budge.
Let's talk about staging. And I'm going to take sort of a scene from each one of your films to sort of, for you to explore with us. And the one I would like you to talk about is the fight at the house. But we'll maybe talk about locations we have times, because each one of you have found spectacular places to shoot. But specifically at the house, where she is blind and tacked, and Toros and the boys or the Gopniks are on her. Talk about how you staged that. How did it begin? What did you do to get to the place that you inevitably did, which is an amazing sequence?
Okay, well, thank you. Luckily, I was able to see the house before even getting there, because it happened to be on the market 5 years before we shot, so it was on Zillow. And I literally saw this mansion on Zillow, and I asked my amazing location manager, Ross Broder, to get it for us, and he did. But it was great to be able to be here in West Hollywood and write for the mansion and be able to see, because there's 100 photos, and so I'm thumbing through and being able to stage it where I'm going to be. And then, when we finally were in the space, I don't storyboard either, but I do shot lists through like Artemis, that app. Mm-hmm. So when I'm on set, I can use Artemis, and I know the different focal lengths and the lenses we're using. And
you have somebody.
Drew is there with me, of course. Okay. Drew Daniels is there with me, my cinematographer, and we block it out. And we were tight on time, and we scheduled it for 6 days. And after that second day of shooting, I knew we needed more time. So we stretched it to 8. We shot pretty much chronologically.
So if you're shooting chronologically, there's this moment when a number of things are broken, smashed.
Yes.
I'm really interested in how you develop what's going to be smashed, how many times you did it, et cetera.
Well, it was Mikey and Yura doing their own stunts, number one. So that was, And it was approximately 3 days in when or maybe the second day when it was all going down. We had a stunt coordinator there. So of course they would run through it at like quarter speed. And we would say, this is the vase this lamp goes there, this lamp goes there, try, Mikey, I know you're going to be blind, but try to kick the vase. And she did. And it was, it was from what I remember, a very anxious moment, not knowing if we were going to get it. But then when
a number of those shots are, in fact, long shots. We're not talking about lots of coverage.
Oh yeah, but the one biggie, it's a long shot, but it was also, we knew the in and out. It wasn't like we were running this long scene. It was the moment where everything gets smashed, and I think it was actually we may have done a second take, but we got it on the first take. And it was almost going to be very difficult to recreate everything. So I, from what I remember, and my AD is, I think here, Lisa Mann, maybe she can tell me. I don't think we did. We did a second take, but it wasn't nearly as.
When Gornick gets kicked and knocked down, was that? Did you have a stunt person for that?
Or did he play that? Vach, there's a double for when Garnick gets kicked in the face and goes through the glass.
There's also something else that happens within this sequence, which is everybody's talking at the same time. And it becomes quite delicious. Do you remember the evolution of that? Was that in your script before you got there, or was that part of the process as you rehearsed it?
That's rehearsal, because it's hard to write overlapping dialogue, but I encourage it. While we're rehearsing it, we see where the windows are. We see where the space is that, okay, that needs to be filled. Does anybody have an idea? Give me give me something or just an expletive, throw it in there. Let's fill everything. Let's fill the space.
Wow.
And, it's not like only in one scene did we actually get people's separate, dialogue. We shot that stuff real. So we had all the overlapping dialogue, and I edit, so I'm okay with that. I know that if things get really hairy, we can always ADR.
Got it.
But
and Mikey's screaming,
Yeah.
which is very specific. Do you remember how that also evolved?
yeah, well, we didn't really truly hear it until that first take, because I didn't want her to rehearse so as soon as we do that, the first take with her screaming, my God, it echoed through that entire mansion. We heard later there were, crew members on the other side of the mansion, extremely disturbed and having to hold their ears for hours. She screamed. Yeah, she screamed for a number of hours, and then finally, I think, or maybe 2 hours, and then finally was like, "Sean, we better stop, or I'm not going to be able to do this tomorrow."
Wow.
So she could gauge her. She knew her.
Exception in that sequence is also these very big close-ups on her eyes and mouth. Do you remember how that evolved in terms of what you were doing?
Those were predetermined, and we knew when we were going to get those. I mean, she has such striking eyes, and I really wanted to capture those, but capture them at the right moment. So it was more about when the negotiation was happening, and we were trying to read exactly what she's thinking in this moment, whether she's going to agree with these men or just bluff them. So that was the moment to go in. And we had these incredible Lomo anamorphic lenses that allowed close focus, and so we were able to get these really beautiful shots of her face.
Yeah. James, thank you for this. In terms of staging, particularly the end sequence, when the electric guitars, when he's and particularly when they all try to turn off the sound system, this is a complex sequence because you have everybody in it, including, I think, one of the most wonderful, delicious fights that I've seen in a film in a long time. Talk about the evolution of that.
Well, it is kind of a kind of obligatory scene. I mean, almost every cast member, save Elle Fanning, by that point, is there. So you're managing a lot. I mean, I think the way I relate to staging is really just, again, how to process a space, how you process the space in relation to the story you're telling. And that will help you understand. Sometimes I'll board, sometimes I'll shot list, sometimes I'll just come in. More so, I board but never look at them again. So it becomes kind of more of an act of prep and being able to talk with people about what you're going to need or not need for the scene than it is a kind of, Dumbo's feather on the day, because it kind of becomes so useless so quickly with how much, if you're alive to what's happening around you, is happening. But in relation to a scene like that, the only way I can really think to answer is to say that the space and how the space processes through the story is the way I figure out how I'm going to move people around. Obviously, it's still a dance with my actors and everything else, but that, for instance, to be specific, okay, so you're making a movie that culminates but also features many scenes of people in concert. We've seen that a million times. How do we see it most often? Kind of from third row center, or maybe tracking back and forth, looking at kind of the premium seat in the house, what it looks like from the audience. Well, this is something I learned. This is the second time I made a movie about a musician, but it kind of applied even to the race car movie, Ford Ferrari, I made, which is I don't want to use the vernacular in race car movie. I don't want to use the shot structures of ESPN. I don't want to avoid them. Like, they're only going to be seen if you're looking at a TV. That's the way they cover it.
Right.
The way we're going to live in the race is the way the drivers and the pit crew live in it. And similarly, in Walk the Line and in this movie, I felt that in Walk the Line, it was about two people who fall in love and have intimacy only in front of 10,000 people and then return to other marriages and then have to come back. They can only be alone in front of it, like in a situation like this.
Right.
So that's a really beautiful contradiction to shoot. You can't shoot it from out there looking here. So you end up being involved in what do I see back there? What do I see back there? What do rakings and what if the camera lives up here and this is my background? And that became something very important to me in the Dylan movie as well, because I don't think there's anything of interest from the audience side. There's even actual documentary footage of him singing that concert from that position. So the whole point would be to invade the intimate arena that's impossible to invade if you were shooting the thing live, and offer the audience something no documentary or nothing else can offer, which is the camera completely in the way of what an audience would see. And connecting people to what they'd never see in the audience, which is who's over there and who's over there and who's freaking out over there in that sense. And so a little bit like, so I take that general philosophy of shooting, which kind of defines where the camera's gonna live. And once you know, you start to think, as we all do, in a cutting pattern, you start to collect these Legos and you know what you need to glue them together and to make them work seamlessly. And then it was the planning of where is the soundboard, you know, and this is with my production designer, Francois, and we are trying to figure out, because the other thing that happens that so determines how you block a scene, I mean, one is you find a house on Zillow or in location photos, and you adapt to it, which is what you have to do. Like that's where a movie becomes a really good movie, is where it's built, the space is a character in the scene. The scene was written for the space, or at least feels that way. And for me, the arrangement of stuff at this concert, where is the mixing board? Does it have sight lines to the stage? When Pete Seeger goes to the soundboard, will I be able to rake through the crowd to the stage and compress all these things against one another? How do I position these things that create sight lines that are going to force all these simultaneous bays of performance on top of one another?
When Alvin Grossman has the fight, because they're fighting through a piece of a hanging cloth, would you remember how that evolved?
Well, we when Francois first started dressing it, and I saw these kind of strange kind of striped curtains that were the actual things they had at Newport, it seemed to me one moment where we'd want a kind of pratfall through a breakaway. We had put in a breakaway fence, and they rammed through it, the two of them. But the point would be that there was, I had this, the way people frame Newport 65 is so much about the way we generally talk about music history, like it's an important cultural event where everything changed, and probably our marketing is doing the same thing. And but I didn't view it that way at all, in the sense that I didn't think my job was to, because then you'll end up with a movie like about the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's like, I don't want to do a Disney Hall of Presidents of important, moments in the, and so to me, the movie was about a Thanksgiving dinner run amok between folk stars, where the tensions that had been brewing between a family that had been locked together.
But this choice, though, you saw this thing, you'd had a fence, you saw this thing. I'm interested.
But because I thought of it like a Thanksgiving dinner run amok, meaning that I guess the answer is just the comedic nature of it, or the over-the-top nature. It just felt like everything comes off its rails.
Got it.
So that was kind of how the process.
Got it. Yeah. Cool. Edward, there's an amazing, early on in the movie, a 360-degree shot that starts with, I guess, Rafe talking just before the conclave started. Can you talk about how you decided to do that sequence and how you rehearsed with your actors so that you could then get that shot?
It comes from the progression that I knew I was going to be in that Sistine Chapel for a long time, and I was actually quite worried that it would become boring. I have like 5 election scenes, voting scenes, where a bunch of people fill out their names and put them in a box, and that's supposed to be interesting. So those are static scenes because they're all going to be sitting. So why is the camera moving? Like everyone's just sitting and staring at each other and checking each other out. So I knew that was going to be edited. 5, 6 contenders. You need to shoot them all, and a lot of it on Rafe's face from different perspectives to creep inside his head. So I knew, okay, and if that progresses throughout the movie, the decision when first there's chaos also in this Rafe is, and it's also every time it comes from his character's inner, he's agitated. Later on, he's much more concentrated. And now he's agitated, he needs to prepare, there's hectic. So I'm just starting from him. Going like, well, he's probably, he's in a rush, he needs to get out of there, there's workings around him. And that determines the camera, Then I think, like, okay, the camera should be moving. And if it's moving, there's three people talking, they're moving all over the place. If you chop that up, it just becomes, and I'm not making a Sean Baker movie, like he can do that. And that I knew that movie was not going to be it, like that sequence that we saw earlier can be chopped up wonderfully, like I knew if I'm going to chop up that scene and also I just have one character, so it should be centered around him, one main guy. And so I thought like, okay, it's just going to be one shot. And then I actually go, while I think of, with Stefan, while I think of how to shoot that scene, I'm sort of imagining where he would walk, where the window is, where he looks up, the table that he goes to. And then eventually and I sort of write that down in my own language. There's nothing to do otherwise. And then eventually I go into that set once it's built, and with the iPhone and my ADs and Stefan. And we just walk around and say, okay, walk from here to here, and then we shoot it. And then you think that might work. But then of course on the day Rafe comes, and we do it with him, and slowly, actually in that case, he just wanted to know, I don't want to tell him where to walk. I think that's just wrong. Right. I just think like, okay, this is the scenes. But then he just asked, which window do I look at? Like where they're building. And I said, well, because obviously it wasn't there, it was CG, Like we built the stage up to probably the height of this room. And then the entire ceiling with the windows, it's like 50 feet up in the air, so you can't build that. So, and so he just asked, where's the window? So, well, I thought it was that window. So automatically he goes in that place where I rehearsed. And then I sit the other actors that he's gonna talk to, they're sitting at that table, so he's gonna walk to them. And so it ends up being the shot that we kind of rehearsed, because he kind of wants to know where, like, it's a big stage, so where am I going? He's lost, so he kind of wants some guidance. So you gently, without ever, if he felt this guy is forcing me to stand here and I don't want to stand, then it's never going to work. He just needs to feel it himself, and we walk it through. Probably takes an hour, 45 minutes, and then Stefan puts the camera on the shoulder, and we start walking there, and then eventually it ends up the shot that we shot on the iPhone.
Would there be adjustments? I understand this because you want the actor to own this particular thing. You don't want them to be a puppet to move from one place to the other. But you did have a concept from the iPhone. Would you make, if you wanted to say to Rafe, let's maybe it'd be great if you got up and went to talk to him around the table. Did it ever go that far, or Rafe was getting that without your asking?
Well, if you time out the dialogue, while you do the iPhone shot, there's not enough time for him to walk to the other end of the stage, So it's sort of organically, and ideally you have the same inner motor, Rafe and I, because we start feeling the same movie. So I basically, I'm him, and I'm doing that thing, and I'm basically his stand-in, and then Stefan shoots, and then I walk there and I say the dialogue for myself, and I end up in that position, and somehow it just, I don't know, I never told him go here.
Got it.
But you're also him at that point.
Yeah.
So you're kind of vibing when you're doing.
Yeah, it's like you feed off each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then by that point he, we just trust each other, and then he just enjoys. Also, acting must be so hard also, because again, you come and you're making yourself naked, and you know you have this one shot. It's like, we're all nervous. Like before every shot, I'm worried I'm not going to get it. That shot, I'm worried we're never ever going to get it. And so, but I just keep that inside. But inside you feel that, so you pressure yourself a little bit, and then somehow, it just ends up. It ends. He feels that, and by that time, we sort of trust each other, and we hand each other over, and I trust him, and he trusts me, and then we just do it together.
We hope you enjoyed listening to part 1 of this exclusive discussion. You can watch the full video of the Theatrical Feature Film Symposium on our website at dga.org/events. And stay tuned for the next episode, where our 5 nominees will conclude their conversation. Past episodes of The Director's Cut are available wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America